living color.
We're gonna do it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Tyrone Bowman Live. What's happening? It's all good. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes.
And hopefully it's going to be a real good conversation. Before I get started on today, as always, for those of you who have subscribed to Tyrone Bowman Live, thank you for subscribing. Really appreciate you. And for those of you who will be subscribing, uh, probably maybe throughout the course of this conversation that we're having, or even when we're off the air. Thank you in advance. All right, now let's get down to business on today. Also, if you want to be supportive of the channel, it's $ or $ Cash App PIEXEL number 4. I'm having a conversation today with Watson Suni.
Saintsulne.
Watson Saintsulne. As you can see, he's a black entrepreneur and he's a real estate investor. Welcome to Tyrone Bowman Live, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you for coming by. All right, that's what I'm going to do with this particular conversation, because I think it's important that individuals know who you are and exactly why you do what you do, what's the purpose for it. How did you get started in this line of work?
Well, getting into real estate has been really a long journey. So if we could take it back to when I was about 17, 18.
17,
right?
18?
Yeah.
Not before then?
Well, not even before
Well, when
then.
you were growing up, did you have a curiosity for money?
Yeah. Well, it was really not a curiosity for money, but money was scarce in my household. So both my parents, they're Haitian immigrants. They both came from Haiti, migrated here into the U.S. Me, I was, like we were talking about earlier, I was born in Brooklyn, and growing up my entire life, money was always scarce, right? And we had challenges growing up between my mom, my dad, and my brother and my sister.
So what part of Haiti are you from? What part of Haiti?
My family, my dad is from this part called Okai, and my mom is from Leogan. So Okai is on the west coast of Haiti. You want to think in terms of the U.S.
Somewhere
like
across the continent, y'all.
Yeah, you want to think about like San Diego, right?
Okay.
If Haiti was America, my dad's from San Diego, and my mom is like from Chicago, right?
Gotcha.
In the middle, right?
So they met up.
Yeah, they actually met in Haiti through my.
Sorry, y'all.
They actually met in Haiti through my dad's sister, as my dad was about to catch this boat from Haiti to Miami, and in passing they met, got introduced to each other. My mom made him some lunch, and then that's it, right?
So what was in that lunch, bro?
I have no idea, because I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 years later. You know, my mom had already moved to the U.S. to Brooklyn, and my dad was looking for a job, and he went into this factory looking for a job, and lo and behold, he applied for the job, and my mom was there, right? He was like, "Oh, I remember you. I met you in Haiti."
Really?
Yeah. So they got together in Haiti, separated, and then ended up working at the same place in Brooklyn, New York. And then maybe about a couple of years later, I was born.
Okay. So you were raised in Brooklyn.
Yeah, born in Brooklyn, raised in North Jersey, right? And to get back to it, money was always scarce in our household, and I thought that's how just life was until, I started working at 16 at Sbarro's and took a couple of odd jobs inside the airport. One of them being inside a bookstore, and while things were slow in the bookstore, I ended up just reading a couple of books like during like our closing time. One of them being the Cash Flow Quadrant from the Rich Dad Poor Dad series.
Yes.
And that opened me up to real estate and how people made money, and I was like, wait a second, you can actually make money passively without actually having to work for it. And that just opened.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so that just opened my eyes to it. So at 19, got my real estate license, failed miserably, wasn't a great agent. In my mind, being young and inexperienced and people trusting you to list and sell their homes, it just didn't work out for me. So from that point on, I just took a number of odd jobs, not odd jobs, but sales jobs, selling everything from credit cards to energy to working in banking, to then finally getting back into banking at the beginning of the pandemic and being interested in wholesale real estate. where you don't necessarily buy properties, but you find distressed properties to acquire them for
Okay.
investors.
I want to go back to something here.
Okay.
Where did you attend school in New York?
Well, I was born in New York, but I didn't go to school in New York at all. So, it- from high school in Jersey, I went to three different high schools in 4 years. So, because I spent half the time of it in Jersey and then the other half in Philadelphia. So, I was always the new kid in school, but went to Roselle Catholic High School in New Jersey,
Hmm.
and then John Bartram High School here in Philly.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
in South Philadelphia.
Southwest Philly. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And then they had an annex in Paul Robeson High School, right there on like 42nd Market.
And did they tell you who Paul Robeson was?
I'm pretty sure they did at some point.
Well, did you just for historical purposes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was he was a thespian, singer,
Hmm.
writer, great orator.
Yeah.
But most folks don't know, in addition to being an actor and a thespian, what thespian is an actor. He's a lawyer.
Really?
He's the first black male to graduate from either Yale or Rutgers University.
Wow. Very interesting.
And he found law boring, so
Mhm.
he did not want to practice law.
Okay.
And if you go back in time and if you listen to him speak, you'll know that he was nobody's idiot.
Hmm.
So it's interesting.
That's interesting.
So,
Yeah.
so after high school, what was your passion? What did you decide you wanted to do? How did you end up? You went to college, right?
Yes. Went to the Community College of Philadelphia for the first couple of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And after finishing there, I went to
I went there. I think they put me out.
After there, I went to Villanova, and then from there, really, I was working again some odd jobs. Not really 100% sure of how I wanted to like use the degree I was pursuing in finance, but it was the most eye-opening thing for me was actually transitioning from working for someone where I'm exchanging time for money, where I was actually making money in sales, right? So my brother at one point he was working for a credit card company doing credit card sales in the airport. He approached me and said, "Hey Watson, like check out how much money I'm making. You should do this too." And I was like, "Well, even though I am not the biggest salesman, if my brother can do it, obviously I can, right?" So that's fine. So I took on a sales job, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that I can actually control, the income I can make based on my ability to sell and influence. And then over time, it became a passion of not just selling an influence for the sake of selling a product or making money, but using that influence in a positive way to actually make a difference in people's lives, where I could get compensated for actually helping someone along in getting what they want in the process.
Let me help the audience for a minute. So what I'm doing here, I'm creating a verbal narrative here,
Mm-hmm.
telling a story,
Mm-hmm.
showing you how from his parents migrating to America and how he became an entrepreneur and a real estate investor. And if he can do it and succeed at it, there's no reason why that his brand should not be trusted. And the one thing that I want to convey to men and women, we must learn to engage and interact and to utilize each other's talents, gifts, and abilities.
Yeah.
So while were you at Villanova, what was your major? Finance?
Science, yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah, just for broad finance.
Everything, a lot of math.
A lot of math, a lot of calculus, which I really did not enjoy the math part of finance. For me, it was really more about learning business, and I genuinely believe that business makes the world go around.
Right.
And any opportunity that I would be able to, any opportunity for me to advance financially in this world, I knew very early on that it was going to be related to business, not related to really me learning a specific craft, like either being like an engineer or an employee. I knew for a fact if I can own my own business, I can create the type of life that I.
So how did you know that you were to become an entrepreneur? How'd you know this?
I've always had a very curious nature about me, and that's a great question. I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I'm like, Watson, how did you know you were going to end up being here? I remember there's a couple things, but I do remember one instance where I was at church and this prophet was at the church and he was like, you know what, God is calling you to be an entrepreneur, right? And then another prophet, a couple months later would come back and say, like, you're going to be a businessman, right? And that was the reason, even though I didn't have much of an interest in finance per se, part of the reason why I majored in finance, I said, well, if I'm going to be in business, I need to learn finance. So I guess from early on, it was just God calling me to be in that space
Keep
of
talking.
entrepreneurship,
Yes.
knowing that, and over time learning that being in that space is going to be one of the best ways I can help serve people.
Right.
Yeah. So I've always had like a very curious nature about me.
That's a
I
lot better.
Yeah.
That connects to yes now.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I've always had a curious nature about me. I always tried different things. I was big into video games growing up, and I was always like a problem solver. When I would get a video game from Blockbuster, I never really enjoyed playing the game. I always enjoyed trying to find the fastest way to beat it. So I've always been like a problem solver, and I would buy the books, the cheat code books, and I would figure out how can I take this puzzle and break it down and solve it in the fastest time possible. So I guess if I take that desire to solve problems and me understanding that I thrive more in a sales environment, influencing people. Okay, how can I influence people and solve problems? And real estate kind of became that vehicle that gave me the control to do that.
After graduating from Villanova, did you pursue any other efforts in terms of education? Or did you just decide you wanted to become a part of the workforce slash?
No. It was just really a matter of just going into the workforce and finding my way. I did want to go into a career in banking, and I did. I did start off with like retail banking, thinking that would eventually take me to where the big money is in banking, very, very early on. But again, the moment I started working in sales, I was like, wait a second, right? There's something here. Me working in sales is going to give me the opportunity to really have more control, as opposed to like, going through the entire schooling process. And
Well, how did you get started? Okay, I remember you said earlier you took a test for
real estate agent, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I became a real estate agent. That was at 19 years old, right? So
And how well did that go for you?
that didn't go well at all, right? That didn't go well. So I got my real estate license, and being young and inexperienced and driving people around to
Show
them houses.
Yes.
I didn't have the marketing side of the business down where I was able to get listings. And this was during 2007 and 2008 during the housing crisis. So I remember people were getting approved for loans very easily. And then this was about a year after I got started, the whole housing market, crashed, and there was no one buying homes, and buyers were my only source of, doing business. So I eventually pivoted simply because I wasn't getting any business at that time. So.
Okay, in becoming an entrepreneur, did you envision within your mind what you wanted to do, or did you kind of figure out as you were going along?
Well, I would say that I knew for sure as I was going into my different sales jobs, and working for the Bank of America, I knew for sure that I wanted to be in real estate after we had a great quarter at the bank. We received a pretty big bonus, and I was like, okay, this is probably going to be my opportunity to buy property. And some of my coworkers, they had already owned property, and I was talking to them about how they acquired their real estate, and they talked about either using an investor-friendly real estate agent or a wholesaler. And a wholesaler is a form of investing. It's an exit strategy when it comes to real estate, and that part of it intrigued me. So when I got started, I was specifically focused on wholesaling, which is essentially finding distressed properties, acquiring them by getting them under contract, and then from there taking those properties and selling them to investors who actually do the work.
What are distressed properties? What does that mean?
Distressed property means properties that need a great deal of rehab, a great deal of repair, sometimes a distressed property isn't necessarily a property that is dilapidated, but sometimes a distressed person can have a distressed property where they have some sort of extenuating circumstance that requires them to move on from the property. Either they inherit it and they live out of state and they want nothing to do with it, or they have a pending foreclosure, or there's a divorce in play. So when I first started as an entrepreneur, all of my marketing efforts went to solving those type of problems for that specific type of homeowner. So 88% of all homes are sold on the MLS through a realtor, right? And 12% of those homes are sold outside of the MLS where they're for sale by owner. And it's in that market, it's in that 12%, that's where I do my work, right? Because for the most part, if people have nice homes and they're in good condition and they'll pass inspection, even when they come to me, I say, here's a referral to a realtor. Your house is too nice. You should get maximum amount for the home. But in certain instances, because the home is in distress, meaning that it's boarded up, the front yard isn't being kept, it's abandoned, there's squatters living in the property, and again, given some personal circumstances where there's a foreclosure or they inherited the property and they want to move on from it, that's where I'll come in and say, okay, if the type of person who is going to buy your house is an investor, because there's going to be a significant amount of money that needs to get poured into the house for it to get up to that retail ready status, then that's where I come into play. So when I first got started, that's the angle that I went into, because it required me to focus more on finding the deals and using my skill set in negotiating, rather than having a huge budget available to actually purchase the homes. So I created partnerships with investors, struck deals with investors who are looking in certain areas, and then when I would find a home for them to invest in, that's when I would get paid to do that.
All right, when you're talking, because I hear the term investors.
Mm-hmm.
When you are sitting down, hypothetically,
Mm-hmm.
at a negotiating table,
Yeah.
with potential would-be investors,
Yeah.
because you have to be able to convince them
Mm-hmm.
to partner with you.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, it's OPM at play, other people's money, right?
Other people's money, yeah.
So how do you convince them
Mm-hmm.
to take their money
Mm-hmm.
and help you?
Well, so this goes back to.
I mean, wait a minute. What's the incentive for them,
Mm-hmm.
and what are they getting from it?
Yeah, so this goes back into my.
What, y'all? Y'all think I know a little bit of something? Gotcha, didn't I?
Well, this goes back to a really fundamental aspect of doing business, is that people do business with people that they know, they like, they trust. A, and B, people do business when they know that there's going to be a return on their investment.
Okay.
So the best way to negotiate is to negotiate from the perspective of the person that you're doing business with. What's in it for them first?
Yes.
That's the priority.
Mm-hmm.
So in my negotiation, whether it's with a homeowner or with an investor, I'm really thinking about what is it that you need, what problem are you looking to solve, and where do you see yourself in terms of either it being financially or personally. Where do you see yourself? What's your ideal perspective of where you should be once the sale is done? So when you acquire this property and you put your money into it and you finally sell it, what does that outcome look like for you? What's the ideal outcome? Do you want to make $30,000 on a flip, or are you okay with $500 a month in cash flow when it's all said and done every single month when you collect your rent? What is that? Right? So that negotiation happens up front as I'm building that relationship with that investor. Some investors only like to invest in West Philly, right around the 52nd and Market corridor. That's their sweet spot. Some people, I have a couple of investors who are from Israel, they just love Kensington. Don't ask me why, there's actually a legitimate reason why, because Kensington is an opportunity zone. You get tax benefits because of its impoverished condition. Businesses get tax incentives for pouring their money and starting businesses.
At one time, it was a flourishing hub.
At one time, but now it isn't. So what I think now is happening in Kensington is that investors are buying properties en masse, not to cash flow right away, not to do fix and flips, but as a savings account, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like they'll buy the properties and sit on it, just pay the taxes, because Once the Acme goes up, once the Starbucks goes up, that's when the property's values are gonna, increase. And instead of trying to find um, investment opportunities after those things are in place, right? They're trying to load up on those properties prior so that they already have the inventory so that once the economic boom happens, so to speak, they're already in position. I think that's what happened in like Northern Liberties and Port Richmond, more Northern Liberties than anything else. If you drove by, you know, a decade or so ago, you'd say there's not much going on here.
No.
However, if there are incentives in place for businesses, especially larger corporations, to invest in that area, what you'll find is that there's a lot of buying activity, and once those significant investments happen from those corporations, that's when you see the construction. That's when you see the renovation. That's when you see the development. And the people who are going in there, they're like, "Oh my gosh! Like, why didn't I buy when it was, when it wasn't in great condition?" Well, you had the opportunity to do so. You just have to be able to wait for it.
When you say you, who are you referring to? Investors?
Investors, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Investors.
like more so investors. But even if you're, even if you're not a full-time investor and you're just looking to dive into real estate, and trying to find your angle into it as a newer real estate investor, if you have some money and you can park it, you can actually buy property. This is my professional and personal opinion. At this point, I'm not buying in Kensington, but if you are willing to play the long game, buy in Kensington, because you'll find properties anywhere between $30,000 and $60,000 in bad condition. You know, after you purchase it, don't be surprised if people are doing drugs. Somebody's getting shot in the corner. Cool, but you buy the property, and I can almost guarantee you, 15 years from now, there are going to be a lot of people that wish that they invested in Kensington, because again, there's tons of tax incentives in place.
Is there any particular reason why meaning your company, doesn't want to invest in Kensington?
Me personally, it's a safety thing, right? Because I want to be more of an active and cash flow investor. So when I buy, my specific strategy for the properties that I buy personally is midterm rentals. I want to be able to buy properties, rent them to traveling nurses, remote working professionals, and have those type of arrangements in the property. And safety is going to be a very big thing for those guys. But if I was actually playing the longer game, and it's not to say that I'm not going to do that, but if I was willing to just buy a property and just say, hey, look, I'm not even going to do anything to it, it's just going to sit here, and then once the economic boom happens, I would have bought this thing for $40,000. Then the Starbucks goes up, it's going to be worth $300,000 when I'm done fixing it up. I already have the asset instead of looking for the asset when I get there. So that's on the table, and that is an option, but that's not my strategy at the moment.
What is the name of your company?
The Covenant Real Estate Investment Group.
Why did you name it that?
You know,
And it's not because your dad was a pastor.
No. It's not because my dad was a pastor. And I just believe that there's a huge difference between a contract and a covenant, right? When you have a contract, that's an agreement between two parties that are adversarial parties, where what keeps them together is the promise that they make on paper. But when you have a covenant, that's a personal relationship that you're building.
Mm-hmm.
That agreement is not an adversarial one, but it's one that's based on relationship. So that's what we really focus on with whoever we're doing business with. We focus on not just the transaction itself, but how do we create more of like that covenant, that blood covenant that in the Bible, it talks about when two individuals were creating a covenant,
yes,
they would come in, they would slaughter the calf.
That's right. Yes,
and then they would
walk
bloody. Around. Yeah, it was bloody, right? And then they would walk over,
yes,
around, and then they each would, cut
yes,
one of their hands, and then they would shake on it.
Right.
Yeah, shake on it, and then that would represent
right,
the cross.
yes.
That, like, now what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine, and
like David and Jonathan.
Yes. So it's more of that relationship type of business that we want to create rather than a transactional one.
He almost sounds like a preacher over here for a minute, John.
Oh my goodness.
Did you hear the preacher in him almost?
Well.
So, in establishing your company,
mm-hmm.
right, what was because every company must have an objective,
mm-hmm.
When you're filling out your paperwork, et cetera.
Absolutely.
What was yours from its inception?
From the business's inception, our core promise that we make to everyone is that our job is to solve problems and serve people. That's it.
No matter how terrible the problem may be.
You know, we are so when it comes to core values, one of our core values in the business, and I believe every business should have core values. Some statements that they filter all their decision making through. One of our core values is that we are relentless problem solvers, right? And it's a matter of understanding that a problem can always be solved. We just have to determine whether it's worth it, right? But we don't say we can't solve a problem. It's just, okay, is it this worth solving? So I think in the realm of real estate, people tend to think transactionally in terms of what's the repair value, what's the market value, what are the taxes, what are the numbers. And I think that in a real estate, you're really looking at a relationship-based type of business.
I suppose someone had a home, right? They
Mhm.
come to you.
Mhm.
They want to sell their home.
Mhm.
They're in the hood.
Mhm.
They want out.
Yep.
Because they see the ever-changing tide taking place, and they don't want to get trapped.
Yeah.
But they want to specifically do business with Covenant Investment Group.
Yeah.
You go and you see the property, etc., etc. It's not the greatest of property, but
Mhm.
what do you tell the would-be client realistically about from start to finish? Because they want to know, bottom line is how much they can get. They're not paying attention to the condition of the house,
Mhm.
the wear and tear,
Mhm.
the neighborhood. They just want to know, can I get enough money that once the sale has been consummated, can I get another home?
Okay.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, yeah, the first thing, that's a great question, because that's a scenario that we actually see so often, where people are ready to move on from the home, but they're not real estate professionals. So on top of coming to us to pay for the home, they're actually coming to us for that type of guidance.
Yes.
Right. So one question that I would always ask is, okay, what are your plans? Like, where do you see yourself going after you sell the home? Right. And really frame our conversation around those goals. I think that it can't be said enough where if even if the property is worth, let's say, $50,000, but if they need $80,000 to move, then us buying the property for $50,000 really doesn't help solve that problem, right? Maybe they need to sit on it. Maybe there's another way for them to move without having to sell the property. There could be some other alternatives, but at the end of the day, it's really finding out what's important to that person. Where do they see their life going outside of that, and how much do they need in order to accomplish that, right? And does selling this house solve that problem specifically? Because sometimes we run into people who say, I need to sell this house because I need to accomplish XYZ, and come to find out that they can accomplish XYZ without having to sell the home. And
Really?
in some instances, so in some cases, there could be senior citizens who need to move on from the property because they need, they don't want to be going up and down the stairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they feel as though that they just have to buy a new home. But if you live in the hood and your home is not worth that much, to take that money and buy something that's in a safer neighborhood, where it's a single floor, you may not be able to afford it, but maybe you could move into a senior home, right? Maybe you can get into an apartment instead, that where if you do sell the home, you can be able to afford it. So at the end of the day, how I approach the conversation is, okay, well, do you have equity in the home? How much do you owe on it? Because at the end of the day, an investor's going to have to purchase it. We need to know at the very least, how much debt you have on it, right?
And that's important because they may have liens.
They may have liens, they may have debts, right?
Yep.
And that really helps set the expectation, because sometimes sellers may think that, okay, they're selling the house for $100,000, they're going to walk away with $100,000, but there's a $10,000 lien, or a former mortgage, home equity of some sorts that they've been paying on, and they think they owe $5,000, but they really owe $15,000. But so to flesh that all out kind of sets the expectation. What is their motivation for selling? Like, why do they want to sell? Where do they see themselves going afterwards? And does selling the house really help accomplish that goal? And the other thing that we really look into is, are they actually the legal owners, right? And can they actually take the action on selling the home? Sometimes people living in the home may say, okay, well, I'm living in the home, and it was me and my husband that owned the home, and come to find out that they held title, where it's tenants in common and not tenants by the entirety. Where
What does that mean?
that means that if you hold a title that's tenants in common, you both own 50-50 of the house. So when one person that passes away, the person who's alive owns 50%, and the person who's dead, 50% of it has to go to their estate. So if they have family members, that 50% has to go to those family members.
It wouldn't automatically go to the spouse?
It goes, if it's held by tenants by entirety, it goes automatically to the spouse. So these are the things that we find out in the process that can get very, very hairy, where, yeah, my husband and my wife died, I should own 100% of the property. And that's not 100% of the time the case, because when they bought it, maybe, they bought it and they just weren't aware that they were holding it that way. In some instances, people buy properties where there's a previous marriage or a divorce that happens, and then you get remarried, and that remarried couple is living in the house. So they think that, well, because I was married to him and now I'm living in the house, it goes straight to me. But no, based on that previous marriage and the way that they held title, that other spouse is entitled to 50% or a portion. So things can get pretty hairy. So these are all the things that we flesh out in the beginning of the conversation. But I think the most important thing is, where do you want to go? And does selling this house help you get there? And then we craft solutions around helping you get there. In some instances, if they're elderly people, they may want to move, but how are they going to move all their stuff, right? So we've gotten movers for people, rented U-Haul trucks for people, booked Airbnbs for people, right? Bought the house. Our investors would buy the house. We would let them stay in the house for a month so that they can close on their other property, right? And then move out afterwards. So there's a couple of creative things that we can do to help people go from A to B. But in that conversation where somebody wants to sell, the most important thing is to understand where they are right now, where do they need to be, how much is it going to take for them to get there, and what can we do to help overcome those challenges in that process.
Now, does the investment group, along with you, do you all pay the would-be buyer in advance?
No.
Or they have to wait until everything has been totally consummated?
Well, yeah, the buyer comes to the table with
Or potential buyer?
Yeah, well,
No, I'm talking about the potential seller.
Oh, the potential seller.
Yeah,
yeah, the potential seller. Yeah, once we get to the closing table, that's when the seller gets their funds.
Okay.
Right? In some instances, we help out again with, do they need movers? Sometimes people are in so much financial distress that they can't afford the $1,000 to $3,000 to move all their furniture, right? So the day of closing, we would pay for the movers to come in, as opposed to just letting them close and then having to wait a couple days afterwards to have the movers come in. So we would pay for certain things in advance. Another thing that can get very, very hairy that we do help out with is probate. When people inherit properties, it has to go through that probate process. So if you had a parent that passed away, they owned a property, and you're looking to sell it, just because the parent said that, oh yeah, when I die, the house is going to go to my oldest, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case unless it's in their will and it's written. If they don't have a will, then you have to go through that probate process, going to the city, filing the paperwork, in order for someone to be.
Are y'all listening to this?
Yeah, for someone to be.
You have to have a will. It can be a living will.
Oh, that's the most important thing. That'll get you out of a lot of trouble.
Living wills are the best type of wills to have, because it specifies explicitly what you want to take place upon your departure. I know a lot of folks don't like to think like that, but we didn't come here to stay, and we have to set certain.
True. We didn't come here to stay. That's a whole bar right there. Yeah.
Right. So people have to set things in order. Suppose somebody gets sick, then what? Even if they're still here, somebody has to, operate on the behalf of people. Now, all right, I'm gonna come back to this in a second. Under the umbrella of the Covenant Group, what are the services that you all offer?
We make offers on homes, and we make offers on homes, and we purchase homes through our investor network. So when people come to us and they're looking to sell their home, what we'll do is say, great, you want to sell your home, what's the situation, where do you want to be, how much are you looking for? We take that to our investors, and right now we work with over 5,000 investors in the local Philadelphia area.
Seriously?
Yeah, 5,000 investors.
Wow.
Some of them
This
are
is
more
big time, yo.
Yeah, some of them are local mom and pop investors. Some of them are hedge funds that we have connections with, and they pay a little bit more because they're trying to buy in bulk, and they're playing the longer game. But we'll take the details of the property and your situation there to see how we can make it make sense for everybody involved, right? So so our clients per se are our investors, right?
Yes.
And then when a seller comes to us and they want to sell their home, essentially they're looking for us to acquire it, and we'll do so through that investor network. Okay, based on what the investor's criteria is. Like I mentioned earlier, some investors just want to be in West Philly, some just want to be in West Oak Lane. So depending on where your property is, we'll say, okay, investors and they're our clients, they're the ones who end up paying us for the services that we provide to them.
Thank you. Thank you. Said this is good information.
You're welcome. So yeah,
this is what we do.
Absolutely, all day, every day.
Right.
So we'll go to our investors and say, hey, for example, the West Oak Lane investors will say, hey, we have a property that seems like it fits your criteria. What is the range in which you would purchase this property? And they'll tell us their criteria. They'll tell us their range, and based on the information that we gather from our investor and the information that we gather from the seller, we make an offer to the seller that makes sense for them and makes sense for the investor in the process. And then from there, we acquire the property.
Let's go back to probate.
Okay. Yeah. So going back.
What does probate need for somebody who may not know what it means?
Probate is the process of designating someone as the responsible party to handle the affairs of a deceased person.
Gotcha.
So when a parent passes away, who is going to be the one to make sure that all of the assets in their bank accounts, all of the real estate, all of the bills get paid on that person's behalf, all the taxes are paid on that person's behalf when they're gone. So the probate process involves, in Philadelphia, going to the Register of Wills at City Halls, presenting the documentation saying that you're the person that's designated to be responsible for the affairs of the estate. And that can be done, like you mentioned, through a will, right, which is ideal. You present the will, and the will has your name on it. You show your ID. The Register of Wills will give you what's called letters of administration and say, okay, you're the person responsible for having access to the bank accounts, the investment accounts, the real estate, to disposition all of those according to the will of the person who passed away. Now, if someone does not have a will, then it goes through the family system, right, where one person who is a family member can be designated as the administrator of the estate, but whatever other family members are involved have to sign off on it. Everybody has to be on the same page. You have to come in and list all the assets of the estate in the process.
Wow.
This is why, for the most part, when you can do this on your own. Don't say this to discourage anyone. Plenty of people do it on their own every single day. You will run into some challenges if you don't have your paperwork in order, but you can do it. But for the most part, people hire attorneys to get it done. And in our business, one of the things that we've realized is that because this can get really, really messy, we'll walk people through step by step on how to do it through the lawyers that we've partnered with. So that can run you $5,000 easy, if you don't have a lawyer. But what we'll do is we'll make an offer on the house and say, hey, look, this offer also includes the fact that we're going to pay our lawyer to get you from A to Z, so you don't have to front the money yourself.
And what happens if say for instance, if someone has dementia?
Oh.
And they haven't set their affairs in order. Now what happens
when they pass away?
Yeah.
It's all going to go through the family system that the Register of Wills has. So the question that the Register of Wills is going to ask you is, was the person married at the time of their passing? They're going to want the death certificate, and the death certificate has all the pretty much 90% of the information that you'll need to get through the probate situation. Were they married? How many kids did they have? You want to ask that, because those are heirs. Those are going to be people who have rights to a certain percentage of the estate. If you have 4 kids, it's got to be split 4 ways. So even if that person has dementia and they passed away, there's a criteria that the city, and most cities do, to determine who can become the administrator of the estate and how will the assets of that estate be distributed. So if that person was married and they held title together with the property, specifically 100% of the ownership of that property is going to go to that person who's alive, and then that person's going to be made the administrator of the estate, and then that person will disperse the assets of the estate however they believe that the will of the person was. Now, if they had dementia, who knows what their will really is? You're just going to have to trust the fact that the person who is designated as the administrator of the estate, that person's going to do the right thing. But again, ideally you want to pass away with a will, but if you don't, then the family can get involved, and some person is designated as the administrator, and they'll be responsible for it.
What about if everything is put in the form of a trust as opposed to a will?
Well, yeah, this is where things get a little hairy, and I'm not an attorney.
The reason why I'm asking, because have you come across situations like this?
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't, but somebody who's putting something in a trust is probably getting very good advice from an attorney.
Real good advice.
Yeah, really good advice from an attorney, because you can avoid the whole entire probate process if you have things in the trust, right? So those individuals who have trusts, I can almost guarantee that they're not going to run into the type of challenges that we see every single day, because typically the challenge that we have, I had one situation where there were two brothers, and their mom had passed away, and one of the brothers was living in the mom's house, and he wanted to move, and obviously, since there's two brothers, his brother would have to sign off on what's called a renunciation to designate his brother as the person responsible for handling his mom's estate.
Wow.
Right? So yeah, so they both could be administrators of the estate if they both want to sign off, or one can renounce his responsibility to the one brother. Well, they were arguing about the house one day, and one brother shot the other brother. The brother that was living in the house shot his other brother. So they didn't want to talk at all. So the brother who shot his brother, he was like, I want to sell this house, and I'm telling you, you can't sell this house without your brother signing off on it. Well, screw him. I don't want to deal with him. I should be able to sell the house. I've been living in the house for the last 15 years. He has nothing to do with, but legally you have to do that. So what we ended up doing was finding his daughter, the brother's daughter, calling her. We found her on Facebook, found out where she works, called her. Hey, look, can we please speak to your dad? I know your dad and his brother don't talk, but he's trying to sell the house. And then long story short, we ended up getting his signature to make his brother the administrator of the estate. And then we ended up going through the probate process so that the brother that shot him, so that he can be the one responsible for signing off.
This is good conversation, because it seems like whenever black people in business, we have to go above and beyond the call of duty. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Versus the other people, they ain't doing all this.
So if you have a trust in place, if mom had a trust in place, all the assets would, be already organized in a way where you can avoid the probate process. But when you ain't got nothing, there's no will, families are feuding, people live all over the place. Like, we've had deals fall through because family members just refuse to cooperate because there's some sort of feud. We had one property in North Philly where the woman wanted to sell. She was renting out the property, but she had about 3 or 4 siblings, and they just didn't get along. And one sibling said, you know what, if she's involved, I'm definitely not signing, because I don't want to have anything to do with her. And if she's going to benefit at all, I'd rather not sign for nobody to benefit.
Right.
And deal done.
Just like that?
Just like that. It's one of those situations where you would hope that my charm and my influence would not that time. I bat pretty high, but I don't bat 100. But those are some of the challenges when you have an inherited property in place. Some people just believe. We have one property where now it's in West Philly off 53rd and Addison, where the gentleman's been living in a property since 1999. Right, we're in 2024. His grandmom passed away, I believe, at 97. And in Philadelphia, if someone passes away over 21 years ago, then you can't just walk into the Register of Wills and probate the estate. You have to go to court, hire an attorney, file a petition, and in that petition, send out that letter to all the family members, right, that he doesn't have any idea where most of them are, and then go through that court process. That's a $15,000 process right there.
He said, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, that's 15 grand right there. And we're actually literally going through that process right now, simply because you know, A, the person passed away over 21 years ago, and B, the seller thought that I ain't got to do all that. I've been living here. Nobody else wants the house.
So that's supposed to be technically his house.
He's like, it's my house. I paid the taxes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when it comes to an inherited property, there are protocols, especially legal protocols that you have to go through. And in most cases, an attorney is necessary. But that's part of the benefit that, we can offer, is that because we have so much experience in that space, we will contact our attorneys. We front them the money, right? We incur that expense. And in total transparency, our offer reflects that. But in most cases, people can't do it the other way around, right? If you're tight on cash, you can't afford to pay 4 or 5 grand for an attorney just to go through the process. It's better that we make an offer that includes that. We pay the attorney up front to get it done, and then that way you don't have to incur the expense and you get to sell the home.
Let me ask you a question. This is a different turn in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You see these infomercials now they're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can become a millionaire plus by attending this real estate seminar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think of those types of events?
Well, I mean,
is there any legitimacy to them?
Yes. Yeah, there are. It's just really about finding the right program, right?
Okay.
My whole entire career is.
Did you go to some of them back in the day?
Yeah. So.
Did they help you?
Absolutely. But it wasn't just.
I went to some. Let's just say it didn't work out.
Well, there's a different. I go through a pretty extensive vetting process, right? When I see an ad, and in today's world, you can easily do this. When I see an ad, I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. Let me see if that person has an Instagram. Let me see if they have a website. Okay, do they have a podcast? What are their reviews on Google? So those are some of the things that I'll do to kind of vet and see, if I want to be a part of this specific program. So when I first got started, there was a real estate investment association in Philadelphia that I enrolled into called the Better Than Success Real Estate League. And I heard, the owner on podcast. I heard one of her members in a YouTube video. And so I said, okay, well, they're doing business in my neighborhood in Philadelphia. I followed them. I've seen some of their content, and now I'm going to enroll into their program. Same thing. I went to a real estate conference. What was it? Maybe 2 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona, and the person that I call now one of my real estate mentors, his name is Brent Daniels, literally puts out content and podcasts all day, every day, sometimes twice on Sunday. So we built that trust. So when I see his ads, it's just not an ad, it's an ad backed by reviews and podcasts and information that I've already been able to see. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity to learn more about the business and build your business, if you're in that space, through those seminars and conferences. But you just have to do your due diligence and do your homework.
What advice would you give up and coming real estate investors?
Ooh, up and coming real estate investors.
Yes, like the next generation that will come after you.
Great question. I think becoming a real estate investor or an entrepreneur in general is an exercise in personal development and creating value, right? So understanding, the first thing I think you have to understand is your personality, right? Who are you? What type of investor that you would be specifically? Are you a buy and hold investor? Do you have a 9 to 5 and you're financially stable and you want to invest just to supplement your income? You have to identify if that's who you are. Or are you a fix and flipper? Do you like to be in the day-to-day of the renovation part of the process, and you like that big chunk of cash, that $50,000-$60,000 at the end of the day? I can't tell you who you are, only you know who you are, but I think that's the first thing. If you're going to be an investor, you have to understand your personality. And then outside of the personality, you have to be able to understand the profits, right? What are the numbers? What are the numbers that you're going to be looking at? And then on top of that, you have to understand who you want to do business with. So you have to find partners, right, and professionals to help you.
How did you go about establishing a coalition of partners?
The Real Estate Investment Association is huge. Finding the market that you want to be in. I would recommend most investors really go into, if you don't mind,
Yes.
Yeah, I would recommend investors do business in their own market to start off because where you live, you probably have a good understanding of the streets, the neighborhoods, the areas. You can most likely go to properties and really and really do some due diligence based on you being able to go and see a property. So for me, I joined a real estate and investment association where there were investors, title companies, engineers, contractors that I could shake hands with, that were doing seminars, that were teaching different aspects of real estate. So that was, I think, very, very important in my journey to learn, and then understanding the numbers, understanding how the profits work, right? Again, connecting with different programs, different resources. YouTube was one of my best friends learning because it's just free information. And then building that coalition of partners is really, again, just understanding how do their businesses work, what makes them profitable, and how does what I do help them meet their goals, right? So the first deal that we ever did was in February 2021, right? And I just started doing some marketing, started calling sellers who had distressed properties, specifically sellers who had squatters in their property. And we got in contact with one, and I was able to sell that property to an investor that I actually went to coffee with, right? I was working at the bank, and he came in with a big check. I was like, hey, where's this check coming from? He's like, yeah, we just closed on a deal. It's like, oh, I'm looking to get into real estate myself. How can I get into it? Can I take you out to lunch and, we can talk shop? And we ended up, talking shop. We exchanged information. He was like, hey, Watson, if you find a property that meets these criteria, let me know. We'll be the ones to buy it. That's exactly what happened. So a coffee, a lunch outing with a future investor actually ended up turning into my first deal getting closed.
So you must have read Think and Grow Rich then.
Yes. Yes, that's actually one of my favorite books.
I know.
That's one of my favorite books.
I recommend it on here all the time. Have you ever read Succeeding Against the Odds?
No, that one I haven't.
Get out of the studio.
Succeeding Against the Odds.
See, I'm done with him right now. You don't know the story about Ebony Magazine?
No. Well, this is where iron sharpens iron, right? This is where you get to put me on.
Succeeding Against the Odds. I'll show you the book before we leave.
Yeah. So I think
I think if you read the book,
mm-hmm.
and you'll see how John H. Johnson took $500 after pawning his mother's furniture.
After pawning his mother's furniture?
After pawning her furniture, because he established the first black publishing company in America.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. I'll show you the book.
Yeah. So I think for someone who is looking to get into the business, get into real estate investing, it's really about understanding your personality, right. Understanding the profits available, right. And building the partnerships.
Yes.
I call them the 3 Ps. So really understanding, who you are as an investor and the type of strategy that you want to employ. Right? I got it.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Understanding the type of strategy you want to employ, getting to really know your numbers, right? And the numbers that'll work for you. And then on top of that, building the professional partnerships and getting
right.
the right people in the right seats around you so that you can actually make the business work.
He said his older brother had a business partner who disappeared with $100,000, $100K.
Yeah, those magic tricks happen out here.
And he retracted the business. He's always on my page.
Yeah.
So, investing, establishing, negotiating. See, basically, your networking ability is what tied you with a lot of your success here.
Absolutely. In life, it's really what you know can only take you but so far, but who you know will take you much further.
Listen. Mm-hmm. I keep trying to tell people this. You can have all the degrees you want, and you have to be likable.
Yeah.
A lot of folk, they know a lot, but they're not likable. Mm-hmm.
He said my brother had a business partner who disappeared with $100K.
And never heard from him again.
Flew to another country and never heard from him again.
He said he also died.
Wow.
So, how long have you been in business?
Last week makes 4 years full time.
Hold up. Wait a minute here. Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah.
It'll be 4 years.
4 years full time. I mean, I started the LLC in May 2019, but I still had the
At the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, right before the pandemic.
Right.
That's when we got started. That's when I established the LLC, but then I didn't go full time until November 2020. Right, and at that time I had got let go from my banking job due to a whole bunch of reasons involving the pandemic and.
Well, if it's any consolations, every job I had, I got fired from.
There you go.
No, straight up, and I'm glad. You know why? Because I had no, like I'll give you an example. I had no business trying to sell chicken.
Yeah.
That was never my call.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make money.
Of course.
Let's just say it didn't work out.
Yeah, let's just say that.
I tried moving furniture.
Yeah.
Tried being a carpenter. Because somebody said, well, Jesus was a carpenter.
That he was.
So they figured, hey, you can be a carpenter too. Trying to be a humble church boy and all that. I ain't got even, you know the story.
I know the story.
You know, you want to be humble, you want to be righteous, all that kind of thing. But I found out that passion becomes your purpose. And if you pursue it, the rewards will come.
Yeah.
So this is what you do full time.
Yeah, I do this full time, and I also dance full time as well. I'm a professional salsa dancer.
What?
Yeah.
You know what?
I'm a professional dancer.
You know, I have a way of pulling stuff out of people, y'all. That's why I'm just me. All right, let's go over to the salsa. That you're a professional salsa dancer.
Professional Latin dancer. I teach, perform, and I've even competed in Latin dancing, like salsa and bachata.
You have stuff on your Instagram?
I do. Yes.
I'm gonna check it out.
Please do check it out.
We'll check it out.
Me and my dance partner, we just debuted a new routine in Denver this past October. It was a bachata routine, and we'll be looking to take that show on the road throughout 2025.
Where are you gonna take it to?
Well, right now we're looking at the beautiful thing about Latin dancing is that it's gotten so popular that every every major city in the U.S. has a Latin dance festival, and actually during any weekend in the world you can find a Latin dance festival. So specifically, I've been to the Baltimore Festival, DC Festival, Denver. There's a festival in the Dominican Republic that I've been to. So
really,
yeah. So in the past when I was dancing for a company, we would get hired.
Because you're bilingual, so you can.
Well, my Spanish is not very good looking. I can work on that, right? But
you speak French fluently.
Well, I speak Creole fluently. French is the national language of Haiti.
Oh,
I don't know
pasta,
French.
Spaghetti. What's the difference?
There is.
No, I'm just.
But yeah, so I've gone from teaching at these events or performing at these events as part of a company to now that I'm solo. I'm actively like reaching out to them now and saying, hey, like we just debuted a new routine. Let's come out and perform. So I'm.
Have you been on America's Got Talent yet?
Oh no.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I think you need a little bit more talent than what I have to be on America's Got Talent. Those guys are versatile. That's the thing. Like I love Latin dancing, and I love salsa bachata. But those guys on Dancing with the Stars and America's Got Talent, they're well versed in a number of different dances. Not to say that I can't do it, but it's just not something that's.
In addition to being a broadcaster and all this kind of stuff, I'm a singer. I can sing anything. It doesn't matter.
Really?
I will sing anywhere.
Yeah.
And anytime, at a barbecue, at a picnic, at a baptismal, at a confirmation, at a communion. It don't matter.
Yeah.
If you're a singer, you can sing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm a dancer. I can dance anywhere. But yeah, I think when I look at like the overarching message of my life, dance is going to be one of those things where it's an artistic outlet that I believe that everyone should have. And you should use your ability to solve problems for people in the space of entrepreneurship in order to enjoy that passion.
I listen.
And sometimes they're both one and the same.
Agree.
Sometimes they're one and the same, where your passion
Right.
is something that helps people solve problems, and you can dive deeper into that and make that a business. But at the end of the day, I think that anyone who has an artistic outlet and an artistic passion shouldn't be restricted from doing it simply because they have a 9-to-5. I believe that you can craft a life that you love
of course.
in order to pursue the things
That's right.
that you love.
Listen, I purposely agree. Like ultimately, I'll tell you off camera, but there's a sports venture
Mm-hmm.
that I have a passion for,
Mm-hmm.
and also have a sports channel.
Yeah.
It's called Black Wrestling News.
Black Wrestling News. Okay.
So I have a sports channel, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want to be able to do what I want to do.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to do what I want to do.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to close this out as we're looking, because we see how fast we've been talking for over an hour.
Over an hour, that's true.
I didn't think it was going to last 15 minutes.
Wow.
Wow. As you're looking into the camera,
Mm-hmm.
and you want individuals to trust your brand, you want them to engage with you
Mm-hmm.
and to utilize your services.
Yeah.
Tell them why that they should give the Covenant Investment Group a chance.
We're really focused on identifying and helping you solve your problems. At the end of the day, there are a number of investors out there. There are a number of realtors out there who can put your house on the market and help you sell it. But the reason why you should do business with us is not for any of the reasons that benefit me, but because in our business, we will put you first. We'll identify what's most important to you. Where do you see yourself after the sale? And we'll really take those things into consideration when we're making our offers. We've built a large network of investors that we work with. I was telling you off camera that we've raised some funds ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have even more capacity to close on properties. And not only through the 5,000 investors that we work with that could buy your home, but now we are actually investors ourselves. So
how can they contact you?
You can reach out to me.
He says he's wishing you all the best in your business, young man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You can reach out to me. Send me a text on 215-255-5708. You can text or call.
What's your email?
215-255-5708. Email is watson@covenanthomesphilly.com. That's Watson, W-A-T as in Tom, S as in Sam, O-N as in Nancy, at Covenant Homes, with an S, Philly.com. You can go to our website, covenanthomesphilly.com, and check out our information there. And you can follow me on Instagram. On Instagram, you'll see all of my stuff. Like I'm very into health and wellness. You'll see, my salsa and bachata dancing on there. Yeah.
Do you sell health products as well?
I don't. I probably should, because I'm pretty anal about, eating correctly and all organic and nutrition.
Everything with you is organic? Yeah.
90% of it. The other 10% is tequila, right? But the organic, kind of tequila.
We know he ain't gonna be passed in no church.
Right. But yeah, so yeah, you can follow me on Instagram as well. And I share a lot about what I do with my work, and also I share a lot about what I do with dance. And I do my best to marry the two.
I'm gonna follow you right now.
Yeah. I do my best to marry the two because, again, people feel as though that I run into so many people that have these things that they're passionate about, but they have to make money, so they can't pursue them, right? And if you're one of the fortunate ones who's actually able to pursue a passion that leads to financial well-being, then that's great. But what I want to preach is the idea that you can be whoever you want to be and pursue whatever passion you want to pursue, and not let finances be an obstacle. But you can allow entrepreneurship to be the vehicle that allows you to pursue those dreams and pursue the things that light you up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. And these are the types of conversations that I'm going to be bringing before the camera. Individuals who are making a difference, individuals who are entrepreneurs, individuals who are movers and shakers in this generation. Game changers. Because if you don't believe in the talents and the gifts and the abilities that you have been endowed with, that's been put within you, then you can't move forward in life. You have to believe it yourself. And then you must be willing to pay the price that it takes in order to succeed. Because if we don't do what we do, if he doesn't do what he does, if I don't do what I do, then somebody else is going to do it. And you know what happens when the other folk get hold of it?
Mm-hmm.
They run with it, and they're not going to give us no credit
Mm-hmm.
for nothing. So, Anyway, this is not the last time you've heard from Watson. He'll be coming.
Yes, we'll be back.
He'll be coming back, and then I have my Actually, I keep telling y'all I do have new equipment. I just need to learn how to work it. So until next time, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Tyrone Bowman Live. If you'd like to be supportive of this channel right here, my cash app is $ PIEXDL number 4. Until next time, never surrender, never quit.